Most buyers think business acquisitions are won by whoever offers the most money. In reality, the highest price is often just the ticket into the conversation, and the deal is usually won somewhere else. Deal psychology is something we spend a lot of time unpacking, because once you've been involved in enough transactions, you realize that sellers aren't just comparing offers, they're comparing what life is going to look like with each buyer. I was involved in a transaction recently where we had 3 genuine buyers. One offered 1.69, one offered 1.55. The buyer who actually got the business, 1.5. It's almost $200,000 less than the highest offer. Everyone that I've spoken to about this asks me, Dan, what was wrong with the higher offer? Well, nothing really at face value. And in fact, if all you looked at was the purchase price, you'd absolutely pick that buyer. But that's not how sellers think. They start imagining what the next 3 or 4 months of their life is going to look like, and they also want to get a sense of certainty. Selling a business is a very uncertain process. The successful buyer was offering less money, but they had a 6-week due diligence period, settlement was locked in for June, there was a deferred payment period, but it was guaranteed. This particular buyer was prompt, they were responsive, they were credible, and they were a good person that the seller could see was committed. The deal was just really clean, and you could see how the deal got to settlement. And then you look at the highest offer. Settlement wasn't until October. The buyer wanted owner's commitment for another 2 years. Due diligence hadn't really started. There was a lot more moving parts that needed to be worked through. Every one of those terms gives the seller something else to think about. Another conversation, another negotiation, another chance for the deal to wobble. Then there was the third buyer, 1.55 million, a perfectly respectable offer. But every time we thought we'd agreed on something, another condition would appear, another clause, another protection, another discussion, and the deal just kept getting more complicated. It didn't develop momentum. And here's what buyers sometimes don't realize is that the seller isn't reading those clauses. They're reading you. They're thinking, if this is how complicated things are before we've even signed contracts, what's the next few months going to feel like? Then something happened that had absolutely nothing to do with the contract, and one of the buyers turned up an hour late to a meeting. And people laugh when I tell them this story. They say, well, surely that's not going to influence a large or multi-million-dollar transaction. Well, maybe not on its own, but that's, again, not how sellers think. They're already looking for signals. If you're late now, will you be late getting finance approved? Will you be hard to get hold of? Will every decision take longer than it should? When someone is handing over a business they've spent 20 years or so building, everything becomes evidence. And that's why I always say buyers think they're negotiating a deal, sellers think they're choosing a person. And the successful buyer wasn't perfect, they just gave the seller the fewest reasons to worry. So after years of watching transactions unfold, I've learned that the purchase price gets everyone's attention. Certainty is what gets the deal. It's not about making the biggest offer, it's about understanding how sellers actually make decisions.